Declan Radio. This is Gary Rhinehart for Heart to Heart with Gary Rhinehart, live at the Hippie Hotel in downtown Lake Pleasant. I am joined here by my friend Nicole Gibson. How are you doing, Nicole?
Oh, I'm doing great today, Gary.
Excellent.
It's a lovely soggy day in the Adirondacks.
You're telling me it's supposed to be icy tonight. It's supposed to be like an inch and a half of ice on my way out home. I'm lucky I only live up the hill, so I don't have to drive very far. But the weather is just not cooperating. This is not April weather.
Well, in the Adirondacks, it might be.
Yeah, spent 29 years here, and it's like, what's going on? What is going on? So, as you might know, today is my first live interview, and I thought, who better to interview live for my first live interview than myself? I can't beat that. You can't beat what's already perfect. So, luckily, thanks to some generous listeners, I have some questions already prepared, but Nicole has also written up some questions, as have the other people here at the office. So, we're going to take it away.
Alrighty, Gary. Well, to start things off, how about your favorite memory of college?
Alright, this one came from my friend Elise. My favorite memory of college, I'd have to say, would be the opening of the student lounge video game room. I was part of a video game club, and we were able to procure a room in the student lounge. And in it, we were able to get televisions and video games set up, and we just had kids playing video games like all the time. It was awesome. Like, so between class, you could go downstairs, you could get on the Wii, you're playing the Wii with your friends. They had stuff like Guitar Hero, not Dance Revolution, but there was like another one with the Kinect, like a dance game. So you just see like these nerds just dancing the different steps to things. Smash Brothers was a big thing because a lot of those party games were always pretty huge. And that was at FMCC. That was pretty much where I spent the bulk of my college career, was at FMCC. I mean, when I was in Plattsburgh, being on the radio was kind of the coolest thing I did. And that's what kind of brought about doing this, is my love of doing things on the radio. I had a jazz show called the Blue Note Hour that I did an hour of jazz music. It was Saturdays at 8, and it was on a public, not really public access, but it was a public station where, or not for profit, I guess would be better suited to be not for profit. So we had to do, what would you call it? Like PSAs. We had to do PSAs, and we had to do college commercial, like free college commercials, so we could keep our not-for-profit. Funny story. We were in a meeting. We had 3 different parts of the radio station. We had news, we had music, we had sports, and I was in the music part. So we were talking about the new music that had come in, because like low-level labels would give us music to play, and all of a sudden, the guys who were on the radio were playing. They were playing Sublime. They were playing "Doing Time," and it got to that part where he goes, "Fucking fighting, it's all the same." And as soon as the person in charge of the station heard the F word, because this was FCC regulated, she snapped, and it was hilarious. She just goes right into the station. And now the room is soundproof, so like the outside noise doesn't get in. So you just see this woman yell at people, but you can't hear a thing. So you see her waving her arms around, and then she realizes the song's about to end. So she opens the door to get out. She goes, "And don't you ever play that song ever again!" That was one of the best times, and it was right next to a Subway, which was also helpful.
Well, I think I can attest for most of the cool people to say that a Sublime song has always been the cornerstone to a great memory.
Exactly.
Now, Gary, on the note of college, what happened to your college career?
Well, I've been battling anxiety for, officially, I'd probably say about 10 years. But I've always been kind of a nervous kid. especially when I was young, we used to go on trips to like Amsterdam and Gloversville, and I used to get so nervous. I'd get sick to my stomach. I would actually like throw up. I once threw up on my dad's shoes, and he had to go get brand new shoes just going to the barbershop. And unfortunately, when I thought I kind of had it under control by the end of my career at FM, I got my associate's degree. I thought, oh man, I got this under control. I'm good. I'm ready to move up to Plattsburgh, which was the college I always wanted to go to. And unfortunately, after like about a month of college, I was diagnosed with what is that kissing disease? It's or they call it the kissing disease.
Epstein-Barr?
No,
I'm not sure.
Anyway, but it was
mono.
Mono. I was diagnosed with mono, so they told me not to leave my room for like, or at least not leave the dorm for like 2 to 3 days. So I believe that kind of kept me into like one room. It kind of brought on the anxiety again, and then I just completely lost it again. And since then, I still really haven't gotten the I wouldn't say the courage, but just haven't gotten the self-confidence I had when I was back in Plattsburgh. When I first started, that like I could live my life on my own. I could go to college. I could do all this stuff. I could do the radio. I could do sports and all that. I could walk to class. In fact, I have a trip. I'm going to my grandmother's house this weekend, and every time I think about it, and it's not even a far trip, it's only an hour and a half, it gets my stomach in knots, and my head's all swimming. So the anxiety really gets to me. So I was never able to finish my college career, which was supposed to be a major in English. So I tried other avenues, but it just hasn't worked yet. The worst part was, because I was a month in, I told the college that I had to drop out because of medical reasons, because I had mental health problems, and they did not think that was a good enough reason. I guess mental health problems does not apply as a medical reason, so I still had to pay for the semester, even though I didn't finish the semester. And it wasn't because I was lazy or I didn't want to finish, but a medical problem came up, and I was really disappointed that they wouldn't help me out in some way. Like, hey, you can pay for the part of the semester you were here for, but we'll cover the rest, or something like that. So I've been having to try and pay my college bills off since then with nothing to show for it. So that's really been disappointing. But you don't know what the future holds. I hope that I can go back to college, finish a degree, maybe a communications degree, so I can be more up on the radio aspect of this job. Because I really do enjoy being on the radio and talking to people and playing music.
Well, while you're still on the subject of anxiety, for our anxious viewers out there, what has been your best tool for battling anxiety?
My best tool for battling anxiety, I'd have to say, is music. My life has always kind of revolved around music, whether it's me playing saxophone, being in a pretty good band, being in theater, and listening to theater music, just my love of jazz and classical music, even being on the radio. Music's always been a big part of my life, so it's always helped me try to cope when I'm having an anxious episode or moment. I wrote a thing on Facebook about how the artist Art Blakely somehow showed up in my life when I was at Four Winds, which is a medical institute. It's for mental health and for addiction. And Art Blakely's a jazz artist. Now, we couldn't have our own iPods there for security reasons, because we can't, want people photographing, oh, Nicole's at a mental institution, now I can tweet this all over. Oh, so they wouldn't let us have those. But I found out that they did have pre-approved MP3 players. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm here, I'm going to listen to something. And I thought, oh, it's probably just going to be meditation music or some sort of, bad music or something like that. And of course they did have that. But then I found out they had not only Art Blakey, but Billy Joel. And I was like, I can do this. I was like, this is awesome. So right in the middle of Saratoga in the fall is probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Saratoga in the fall with the orange and yellow leaves, and just because Saratoga is such a beautiful place. And just sitting outside, listening to Billy Joel, listening to Art Blakey was a big help when I went through that time.
Where did the term Declan Radio come from?
Well, Casey Morrison came up with the idea to have a radio station for the Adirondacks. Now, Casey Morrison, he is quite the idea. He's one of those guys that has an idea a second. Like, he'll have the idea, and then he's on to the next idea, and he's on to the next idea, which is great for this town, that you have somebody who's like trying to think of all these ideas to bring business in and bring people in. And he had talked about, I want to do a radio station. Then with my background in doing karaoke and my background in doing DJ work and being on the radio, I said, well, why don't we give it a shot? I mean, I already have the recording equipment, and I know how to get a server going, and we'll give it a shot. And so we talked about, this was probably September, October of 2017 that we talked about getting it started. We went through all the different ways we could do it, whether we just stick to one podcast or an entire station. And we settled on an entire station because it would allow us to not only offer different shows to different people and the opportunity for people to do different shows, whether it's stuff you like to do, the news, politics. Eventually we're going to get music. We need... Unfortunately, the music industry is pretty clamped down by licensing companies such as ASCAP and BMI, which makes it very difficult for small-time radio people like us to even play music that's copyrighted. So we've been trying to get that going. But we also want to be able to fill in the role that I feel 96.5, which is our vacation station, quote-unquote, try to fill in the space that they kind of left, because they were originally very good about being local, having local commercials, doing local events, and now it's kind of shifted towards, Amsterdam, Gloversville, Johnstown. They might do a few things up this way, but I feel that they haven't really been able to fill what they were supposed to do, which is give the Adirondack Park its own radio station, its own voice over the radio. Now, you've listened to 96.5 at your job at Charlie John's.
Former job at Charlie
John's. And, I mean, I've also listened to it as a former employee in Charlie John's. I'll tell you what, the music they play and, like, all the stuff that they do over and over and over is like a screwdriver just going into my brain.
If you really, really, truly enjoy one particular song from about 3 decades ago, you will absolutely love it even more when you've heard it 12 times a day.
Yeah. I always hated, and I don't know why, if it's because they use like an automation program, or the DJ just keeps wanting to torture people, but I had to go to Charlie John's about 4 or 5 in the morning when the delivery showed up. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. It's 4 in the morning. I'm a little tired, but I got this. And the first song I always heard, was Big Girls Don't Cry by Fergie. And I'm like, this is not a song to be hearing at 4 in the morning when I have to try and be happy and ready to go. No, I don't want to hear about Fergie's broken relationships and the fact that she can't find a man. I'm like, why? Why are you doing this to us? And you're right. It was pretty much the same 6, 7 songs. Sprinkled in with maybe something that's new. And I don't blame them for, they're an upstart station. They probably don't have a lot, but I just think that Declan Radio can provide the voice to the Adirondacks that I think it desperately is seeking. To be able to say, hey, we're here, we have ideas, we're people too, and we want to be heard.
Well, I can agree that I do believe many people would probably feel that way. Living in a place like this, you often feel maybe a little bit isolated from the ideals of the rest of the state. But it will be interesting going forward to see how this develops with the internet radio. Yeah. On that subject, how does it make you feel to be part of the first internet radio in Hamilton County? I mean, we can all say that this one is going to go down in the Big Green history book.
Thank you. For me, it's exciting. It's exciting because of the reach that internet has. You have a house up here in the summer for 3 or 4 months, and then you live in Florida the rest of the time. Well, if we were going on terrestrial radio, you can't really hear us. Or you'd have to jump through a bunch of hoops and go through like iHeartRadio or something like that to get to the radio station. And like I said before, we don't really have a radio station for the Adirondacks. Now, with this radio station, because it's on the internet, as long as you have an internet connection, whether that's through your cell phone, through Wi-Fi, through public Wi-Fi, with those little hotspots on your computer, laptop, desktop, phone, tablet, all sorts of mediums, you can always be tuned in and know what's going on here in the Adirondacks. And it's just exciting to think that we now have a worldwide reach. In fact, in my very first Heart to Heart, we had 5 people in Germany listening to the show, which was really cool. They were a couple of friends of mine, but it was still kind of cool to see on the map, on the dashboard, that Germany was lit up because people from Germany were listening to us. And that just shows you the reach that the internet is allowing us to have, to be able to tell people our point of view, what our loves, our likes, how we feel. It has been a great tool to show like how the town board works. That's been very popular. It's the town board. People can't always be there for the town board, so they've depended on the fact that we've been able to record it and have it archived so they can go back to it and listen to it whenever they get a chance. They can skip through the parts they don't like, but I suggest you listen to the whole thing. There's very important parts. And I've had people tell me that, there are things going on that they had no idea about. But now that they've been informed through listening to the town board, they have opinions on it. And our attendance at the town board meetings has tripled since we started broadcasting, which is amazing.
Well, it is nice to get the youth and even people of all ages to get involved with their local governments as small down as possible. Mm-hmm. A lot of it starts with even the smallest branch of everything, and a lot of people tend to think that because they don't see the immediate change in the largest aspect of government, that sometimes it strays them away. And I personally feel like this program being broadcasted is now engaging a lot more people that otherwise wouldn't take the time out of their day to learn a little bit about their town.
Yeah, it's just great. And like I said, all the feedback I've gotten has been very positive about the recordings and stuff. And, it's just great that people now know what things are going on, how things are working.
Well, it is actually maple syrup season here in the Adirondacks, particularly the southern Adirondacks, where some people on the cold side of the mountain might not see it just yet, and some of the larger places are pumping their syrup away. With this question here, I hate to ask, but does Gary Rhinehart use fake maple syrup?
No, that is a lie that has been used by the lizard people. No, I do not like fake maple syrup. I really never have. For me, the darker the amber, the better. And some people tell you, well, you can't eat dark amber with pancakes. The dark amber is supposed to be more of a cooking syrup. And I tell them that they're just not trying hard enough. Dark amber maple syrup it's got the richest taste, and I just love it, especially when I get to taste it at the Weaver's Sugar Shack. That maple syrup has always been really good. Although we have many great maple syrup places, the McCombs. We got the Weaver's McCombs. Mr. Gremlick had one during Maple Fest. Unfortunately, Mr. Ledley just died. Jack Ledley, who was a big legend around here. He had his sugar shack for the longest time, and I'd like to say that it's just been a great loss for the town with him now gone. But we've had maple syrup is pretty much our lifeblood. You know, it's just funny to think of a town that's just their blood. It's maple syrup just going through the veins and stuff. But it's something that people love to do and people love to eat. And to me, it's gotta be real maple syrup. I just can't do Aunt Jemima. I can't do any of that stuff. It's just too much corn syrup, too much coloring. Give me the real stuff.
It's just not the same.
It's not the same.
I myself like to make my own syrup, but I wouldn't be silly enough to part with any of it.
Mm-hmm.
But as the Rhineharts are allowing myself and my husband to tap their precious maple trees so that we could squander away maybe a gallon this year, we would like to have them over for a lovely breakfast for dinner, because Lord knows that none of us can wake up that early and cook and eat. Well, on the subject of food, what is your favorite meal?
All right. Let's go at this. We'll go at this like 3 different ways. For breakfast, I'd love me some pancakes. Pancakes and
with that real maple syrup.
With the real maple syrup.
Dark amber.
Amber, real maple syrup pancakes with bacon on the side. Nice cranberry juice, but I can also do a nice orange juice for lunch. You've probably seen me order this bunch of buffalo chicken sandwich. It's a nice spicy buffalo chicken sandwich with lettuce, tomato, onion, French fries at Speculator, but you can also get one at Logan's.
And then you can see me there too, and I might be the same person serving it to you with a smile.
Oh, and it's great.
So where would you say is your favorite place to eat in all of Speculator?
I'm required by contract to say that Logan's is the greatest restaurant on the face of God's beautiful green earth, and that everyone should go there.
And that has no dissertation that it has anything to do with the fact that they've paid into your program.
I would like to state that there's no reason that I have been forced to say that Logan's is the greatest restaurant on the face of God's beautiful green earth. I have not been paid for this.
Not at all. Okay.
Mm-mm.
Well, that is good to know. Well, in all of the interviews you've completed so far, which one would you say is your favorite?
Well, the most popular definitely is with Carl Abrams on gun control, which was something I knew would be very controversial when it was brought up, because it had been a week or two or so ago after the Parkland shootings and all that stuff that's been stirred up. And with the increase in school shootings, or at least the coverage of school shootings, depending on how you look at it, it's definitely been on the radar of everybody's, life. And up here, guns are a necessity up here. We don't have a crime problem so much, but people love to hunt, and we need to hunt the deer to help keep their population down and for food. People love to shoot targets, and people just like to have it for protection. And I believe that it doesn't get covered enough that people can use guns in a way that's not always evil. Because you see it on the news a lot that people are using guns to kill other people, whether it's school shootings, Vegas shooting, like at concerts, or in war. But people tend to forget that people have used guns for good, to get food, to help tame the wildlife so that it doesn't grab control, and different things like that. So I'm just glad that we were able to get through that interview, get a perspective on it, and answer a few questions that may have come up, such as mental health and guns, owning a gun, what to do if you don't choose to have a gun. That's the more popular. Although weirdly enough, that's not my most controversial. My most controversial interview was with the Yeti. Unfortunately, someone was not very happy with the fact that I had referred to Sherry Matthews, the librarian, as the doctor of Yeti studies, and that caused a little flack come back to me. And I don't know if Yeti studies are a real thing, but that they are. That is definitely where I'm getting my doctorate, is in Yeti studies.
Well, while we're on the subject of mythological creatures, what would be your favorite?
My favorite mythological creature, I'd have to say, is the werewolf or the lupin. Just the cool aspect of some ways it's you have to wait till the full moon rises and then you just become like this terrible beast that just rips and claws and it's interesting to think that you go into the id or to your primal instincts and just start ripping things to shred left, right, and center. But like even when I watch like Harry Potter where they can do it on command, I always think that's kind of cool. And I hate to admit this, but even like in Twilight when they can do it on command, I think that's pretty cool. Just be like, yeah, you're gonna just turn into a giant wolf man. That's kind of the coolest thing.
Well, if you could choose between superpowers, what would it be?
Well, I already have supremely good looks, so I'm not going to use that one.
It would be unfair for the rest.
It would be unfair. I think teleportation. I was thinking about this the other day because on Facebook they have those pill questions where it's like, you take this pill for invisibility, you take this pill for time travel, you take this one, and one of them was teleport. And I think teleport would be really cool because it would cut the time between travel.
Well, what would be the first place you would teleport to?
I've always wanted to go to Japan. I've always had an interest in the Japanese arts, Japanese like calligraphy, the culture, how they've blended the old with the new. You know, Japan has had such a rich history in the past through Shintoism, Buddhism, and things of that nature, and they've always been up on the latest technologies and always improving. And you can also see it in China and Korea, the same exact thing, where they combine like the old Buddhist temples and things of that nature and the love of nature with the technology, the cutting edge technology of today. And that's always been very interesting to see. And there's something about I guess I'll say peacefulness of the culture, which has always appealed to me. Like with Buddhism, it's where violence is not something you strive for.
The nature of the two wolves.
Right. It's trying to find the inner peace between the good and the bad. And it's unique in that way by saying your bad tendencies aren't always bad. It's trying to balance the two out, which is what the lifelong goal of the Buddhists is to try to figure out how to get the two to come together, and then you find the perfect harmony. And stuff like that. It's just really clicked for me. I know that's not something you can really get around here, being that our diversity is not very big, but watching videos and things of that nature, Japan seems like a really cool place to visit, and I think that would be the first place I'd go.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, of all your travels, where's been your favorite place to vacation? Stay at home, kind of stay around the Adirondacks, or are you a man who likes to travel?
I love, and this is going to rub some people the wrong way, but I love New York City. New York City is by far probably the coolest place I have visited, and I've been there at least 20 times. And each time it's just as cool as the last time I've been there. And it's always an interesting aspect to think that the people from New York City come up here and they're the tourists. They see the trees, that's blowing their mind. They see a deer, that blows their mind. They see a black bear, that blows their mind. Where people like us, we see a deer and we're like, that's $500 on my front bumper. You see a bear, that's my garbage all over the place. And you see trees, you're like, there's 500 million of them, so not that exciting. But then when I go to New York City, the roles are reversed. where
I'm sure everyone is speed walking by you saying, hey, get out of the way.
Yeah. But like I see giant, I see the giant skyscrapers, and I'm like, oh, that is so cool. And like the roads and the streets and just people being busy all the time, and just Times Square. I once went with a friend to Times Square, and they had like a part they had just made where the road splits. One goes right, one goes left, and in the middle they made like a park where they had like benches and stuff. And I'm
familiar with the bow tie.
Yeah, is that what they call it, the bow tie?
The bow tie of Times Square, over by the takeout window for NYPD.
Mm-hmm.
It actually almost looks like a little order window where you can get a restraining order on the go.
Yeah.
As a former city slicker, I would say honestly, for me, the biggest thing that that blew my mind after years and years of my personal prison sentence of growing up in the city was to come up here and someone telling me that I can just stick my face in the river and drink from it. I didn't think that this was a thing, and I thought you would probably die. Only to find out that I guess that not everything is polluted.
Yeah. Oh, it's a thing, especially if it's rushing water, because that naturally cleans the water out instead of having it sit and get covered in molds and different bacteria and stuff.
Keep that in mind there, survivalists.
This is coming from an Eagle Scout. But yeah, just sitting in Times Square and seeing the giant screens going, the news is going, everybody's got places to go, and like the island's only, I think it's like 3 miles long and like a mile wide, and there's just so much stuffed onto it. To me, it's just so cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could be 2 o'clock in the morning and it's so lit up from every piece of technology that you could think it's the middle of the day.
Yeah, that.
And occasionally the people that dress up as characters will fist fight each other, which offers a much higher level of entertainment.
I do have a quick story I want to say. I was in New York City for a conference at John Jay College, and I was staying in a hotel on 52nd Street. And I went to the bar and I was like, I could really go for something to eat. What do I do? And he's like, oh, there's a market like 2 blocks away. And I'm like, it's 3 a.m. He's like, yeah? So I'm like, okay, sir. So I walk out. People are walking around like it's 11 o'clock at night. I go, take a left, take a right. There's a Korean market with like, I'm buying chips and sodas, open 24 hours a day. And those little things blow my mind. The subway, going from one end to the city to the other.
In minutes.
And the fact, like, everyone's all, like, depressed and stuff. And I'm like, do you not understand? We are traveling underground through the city. And you're not amazed by this. It's so funny. My teacher's like, Gary, you're like a big child with a huge imagination. Don't ever change.
Having a positive outlook in life is something everyone could learn a little bit from.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to life, what are the things that you shoot for? What are the kind of dreams or wants that make it worthwhile?
I've stated before, I think music for me is a big part of my life. I love to play my saxophone. I love to listen to jazz music and classical music. And I think music is an integral part, no matter what music you listen to, even if other people don't like it. To you, it could mean something very important, whether it's a time or a place or just music you just love to listen to. I think that's a big part of it. And I think that life has a lot to offer in adventure. And you've probably seen this, just the fact that you can go out and take a hike on a mountain, and that's quite an adventure for a day. Walking a block in a city, that's quite an adventure. I mean, I know it's not fighting dragons and goblins and warlocks, but
well, sometimes you'll find people that believe that they are dragons and warlocks and 800 years old, and they will try and fight you, which is the nature of the beast of the city, which can be a double-edged sword. But always an interesting adventure to be
I was going to
had.
say, I've seen some scary things in New York, but we're going to try and keep this positive.
This is a totally different.
We're going to
we'll go down that
We're
avenue
going to try
another
to keep
day.
that positive. But I think just life has adventures every day if you just know where to look for them. And just be able to tackle each adventure and try to accomplish something each day, I think is something to live for.
I think we could all agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've all heard that television killed the radio star, and what made you want to be into radio, and why not video these days?
Well, with the radio, I feel that I could reach a larger audience, especially with the program we have. The program we have here, we're allowed to have an app where people can put it on their phone. They can hit one button, and there we go. Also, my fear with video was that it would be, how do I say it, more self-centered. I feel like in video, I'd only be able to really help myself out. Where doing a whole radio station, I'd be able to allow people the opportunity to express their interests in a way that they may not have thought of, or may not have had the ability to do, or the money to do. And just be able to offer it to other people. Sometimes I've been told that I'm too unselfish, that I try to involve everybody, but that's just something I've always thought of. And I felt that if I did YouTube or whatnot, it just wouldn't allow me to be able to help people be able to express themselves as a whole radio station would. But it's been an adventure in itself, just trying to figure out how this all works and get it working and get the money for it. And that itself has been an adventure for me.
Well, what would you say is the greatest benefit for being raised here in Lake Pleasant?
Yeah, this actually came from another listener, my best friend, other than you, Nicole, your cousin Dan DeCanio. If you're listening to me, Dan, shout out to you down in Florida. I'd have to say, for me, I've always felt that the Adirondacks has taught me, I don't want to say morality, encompassing, saying, oh, you have to live in a small town to get morality. But I think it's taught me specific morals that maybe you don't catch in bigger places sometimes.
Well, I could possibly support you on this one. Being from New York City, by spending my whole life down there, the most common thing you see with people in a city aspect, and I don't mean it for all people, but in general, there's a lot more cynicism that comes along with living in the rat race and the daily grind, where after my 7 years here, getting to see such a complete opposite parallel, where generally the people are very happy, a little bit less stressed. I mean, you wake up and you see pure beauty, but the beauty doesn't come due to pollution or man-made aspects.
Yeah, it comes from the trees, the river, and as much as we hate to admit it, the snow. And
don't you curse at us.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not cursing at you. But and maybe you might be able to help me out, but I know with my cousin's daughter is a big thing, Lena, seeing people come together, or somebody's house burns down, people come together, people have cancer and can't afford the treatments. There's a lot of coming together. There's a lot of group. We're here for each other. And I've seen people who say, I would never spend a minute with blankety blank, and then something happens to his family, and that guy might be the first person to show up and help out. We're able to put aside our differences when it matters most, and help each other because we need to in an environment like this. We need to help each other to survive. And stuff like that is, I think, one of the biggest benefits of being in the Adirondacks.
Well, I definitely can say that coming from a place where you don't know your neighbors to a place where your neighbors know everything about you has definitely been a great learning experience. I mean, for better or worse, you are in a community where people pay attention to each other, where you're not allowed to fall too far off the radar.
Yeah, that's probably one of the downsides is when people come up and they give you a hug, like, we're sorry you got fired from your job. And you're like, wait, I got fired from my job? See, they know it before you know it. It's like,
I mean, sometimes it can be quicker than Facebook and spread quicker than a live radio stream to the other side of the world.
Oh, like wildfire. That is something to get used to here.
Well, on a less serious note, do you feel like there was enough room on the doorframe for Jack in Titanic? I mean, personally, you know how I feel about it. I mean, I think she could have moved over a little bit.
When I was a kid, I definitely was rooting on the anti-Leo campaign because Leonardo DiCaprio was the handsome.
He was just too
boy.
perfect.
He was the perfect guy. And then when he drowned and see all the girls crying, I'm like, ha! Take that!
So I'm going to go out on a limb and maybe say that you didn't believe that Leo deserved the Oscar. Did you think he deserved the Oscar? I mean, it was quite the movie. I mean, he tried really, really hard.
I'm going to be very controversial and say that.
I mean, like every minute was.
I don't think Leonardo DiCaprio deserved the Oscar for The Revenant. That is my opinion. Now, does that mean that he never deserved an Oscar? Hell no. He deserved it for The Aviator.
Personally, I think he maybe tried a little too hard in The Revenant. Although I did enjoy the movie, the after about the first hour of crawling, I was kind of.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. It feels like it was an hour-long movie about crawling
and bears.
And bears.
And bears are evil, apparently.
Yes, they are.
On the term of evil, are all left-handed people evil?
Yes. All left-handed people are evil.
It's not like your interviewer is left-handed or anything like that, but
no.
Thank you for your honesty.
I live with two left-handed people, so I think if there was ever an expert...
you know, Gary, we're the only ones in our right state of mind.
I always think it's weird when I hear stories of Catholic churches where nuns literally beat the left-handedness out of people.
They also beat inspiration and other things out of most people, but I think it comes along with the territory. You can't have hope to mold new minds.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you I got kicked out of a Catholic hospital?
I tried to get kicked out of after-school studies, but I don't think that really compares as a hospital. And how did you manage to get kicked out of a hospital?
So... It's a bit of a sad note. My grandfather was not doing good. He was on his way. He was dying, and my mom wanted to stay overnight with her. Well, unfortunately, there was only the patient's bed and like a chair. So I'm stuck trying to find out. Okay, where am I sleeping tonight? So I went to the waiting room down the hall and I slept in the chairs. Now I don't know if it was like the facial hair I had or the fact maybe I looked homeless. But the next thing I know, there's a nun with a security guard, and they're like, you gotta go. I'm like, no, my grandfather's down the hall. I gotta go see him. And she's like...
That's what they all say, buddy.
That's exactly what she's like, that's what they all say. And I literally got kicked out of St. Mary's. Now, I don't want to disparage St. Mary's. It's a wonderful hospital, and I've had many different surgeries, and I've seen their doctors. It's a wonderful place. But it was not really that great. At 12 o'clock at night, it's 27 degrees, and I'm sitting in the car going, Dad, I got kicked out of the hospital and I can't get back in. So I knew that if I went home and my mom found out I was home and not in Amsterdam, she would have killed me. So luckily, I went to a hotel and I explained my situation to the man there, and he was so nice. He's like, all right, I'll give you half off the room, and he was just so nice about it.
It's not every day you get kicked out of a Catholic hospital.
It's
during
not.
the cold weather.
It's not, and it was so weird because I'm like, even if I wasn't, wouldn't you think they'd be like very nice? Like,
it's not very Christian of you. I would.
The weirdest thing was seeing her the next day when I'm with my parents or with my dad going to pick up my mom.
I'm sure she's
and she's just looking at me, and I'm like, that was her. It was the nun who kicked her out of the hospital.
Well, what's your favorite sport, Gary?
Oof, that is very tough. I love baseball. I've always had a thing for baseball since 9th grade when I went to go see my first baseball game in New York City, and there's just something about the atmosphere of being in the stadium and we're all roaring, and baseball's very, very different in the fact that you never know when the big moment is coming up. It could be any time you see the pitch. It could be a strikeout. It could be a ground ball. It could fly into the seats. So you're never expecting it. So it just kind of, boom, hits you. And it's so cool to watch.
Now, while you're at the stadium, What would you find if you had to only get one item from the concession stand? What would it be?
Hot dog.
Definitely the hot dog, not
New
the
York's-
sausage, not the peanuts, but
Nope.
it's got to be the hot dog.
New York City.
Now, for your dirty water hot dog, as we all know is the best immuno help you could ever get, what kind of condiments would you have on that? Would you go straight New Yorker and have everything in the kitchen sink, or...
Never been a big relish guy, but I will put mustard, ketchup on it. But I don't like to put too much because the hot dog's there for a reason.
Oh, you don't want to supersede your meat flavor.
Right.
You don't want the mystery meat to be less of a mystery.
Right, because you don't want to be like, I just had ketchup and mustard on a bun. No, you want the hot dog. The Hebrew National, actually nowadays they do Nathan's at Yankee Stadium, but it's always wrapped in that tin foil. It's been cooking in that,
I could feel the soft bun now.
Oh, the foot, and it's like about like an inch out of both sides. And
Now, when you eat those hot dogs, do you nibble both ends off first? I have seen more than a few people do that as a part of a strange ritual to consume their mystery meat
no,
dog.
I go from one end, I go to the other, and I enjoy it. I mean, when my dad told me, he's like, when we went to New York City in 9th grade, he's like, if there's one thing you gotta buy, it's a New York City hot dog from Yankee Stadium. And
You're
I
absolutely correct.
never regretted it. It was the most delicious hot dog I've ever seen, just dripping in the sewer water of the city. Just it
gives it that really authentic flavor.
Yes, and I've been so lucky that I have family in New Jersey who go through the city and get real New York City bagels.
That is entirely what runs in my veins, is just pure bagels.
Yeah,
I've been running low since I've been gone for a while, but
Oof.
I refuse to even try to eat a bagel from anywhere else. And I'm sorry, Thomas Bagels, your bread is just bread with a hole in it.
Right. No, if people listening, if you've never had a New York City bagel, they're about the size of my head. You can get them in all different flavors. And I love when if my cousins are listening, Gary needs a good supply of New York City bagels. So please send supplies up this way as soon as possible.
Well, on the subject of food and condiment, Pepsi or Coke?
That's a tough one.
And are you ready to fight to defend your opinion here?
No. I'm going to have to go Pepsi because it's red, white, and blue, just like America.
That's an unarguable answer.
You can't argue.
You are correct.
That is America.
How can you be correct or incorrect on an opinion-based questions? Well, you just watch it.
Yeah.
Now, ranch or blue cheese?
Blue cheese. Especially with my buffalo wings.
Chunky or not chunky?
Oh, no. It's got to be chunky. It's got to have...
It's real.
My mom and I share this weird thing that we can both eat blue cheese chunks straight from the box. And I can see, and you can't see the face, but it's the face everybody gives me. Like when I worked at the Lake Pleasant Inn, which is now Lake Pleasant Lodge, they used to have a bucket of blue cheese, and I'd always like pick off some of the blue cheese, and people would be like, "How can you just eat the blue cheese straight?" I'm like, I don't know. But I've always felt the blue cheese crumbles are delicious.
Well, I mean, different strokes for different folks, but I do remember at the deli there serving you those blue cheese filled olives, which are two of my least favorite things. But for Gary, I would serve him the world. Well, still on the subject of food, and chicken wings in particular, flats or drums, which is better?
Flaps, because you can get all the
and you gotta get the inside meat,
and you can
really. I agree.
Yeah, you can break it open, and you can eat the inside meat.
There is much more of a delicate process.
Yeah, you don't just grab the drum and you just go at it's you take it apart, and you eat the meat on the inside. You got the meat on the ends, and I love me some wings. But I find that wings are the messiest part, which in some cases is not a bad thing when you get like the good sauce on you.
Now, back on the subject of the Titanic, how did it make you feel to play the boat for the entire duration of the movie?
Yeah,
I know finding a stunt double was very hard, and you insisted to do your own stunts, and it kind of ripped you open for quite some time. But I will say it was a stunning visual performance.
Yeah, not many people know my first acting role was on the Titanic. being the boat, and I was all on board, pun intended, until they told me they were killing my character off in the third act, and I'm just like, but why would you do that? The boat is sound, it is moving along.
It was also unsinkable.
Unsinkable, and then all of a sudden, M. Night Shyamalan swerve. Boat's not unsinkable. And you're like, the plot writing is terrible. The plot writing was terrible in that movie, but people like James Cameron, they gotta watch his movies, so I guess it worked out. But to me, I feel that the boat sinking, when you had claimed at least 20 times before that it's unsinkable, is a huge plot hole in that movie.
Well, back on the slightly more serious side of things, what would you have to have with you? 5 things on a deserted island. What would you need? Would it be a creature comfort, or would it be a straight survival necessity? The choice is yours.
All right. For me, I'm going to assume that there's no way of getting off this island. That's where I'm spending the rest of my life. So first things first, saxophone. I need my saxophone with all the equipment to it. So I'm going to count that as one item. Second, I'm going to need probably my favorite book of all time, which is The Giver. I always loved the book The Giver. Ever since I was in 6th grade, I read The Giver, and it's always hit me in this weird way. And looking back at reading that book, it is definitely not a book that kids it feels like kids should read the book, and at the same time, kids probably should not read that book.
Maybe when kids are nearing their expiration date for being called kids would be a good time to invest in that, because by the time you're done reading it, you might not consider yourself a child anymore.
I mean, I don't know if people read, but they have tough subjects such as euthanasia and things of that nature. And as a 6th grader, I'm just going, what is going on?
What is euthanasia?
I like you.
Hey, Grandma, what's euthanasia? No.
No. I would need my iPod and possibly a battery to then use to charge it. Like, maybe a solar panel.
Solar panel sounds good. You gotta have the USB cable, though.
True.
So with that,
that would be like probably item number 5. Although if I've learned anything from Gilligan's Island, coconuts can do anything.
Well, the coconuts usually are on the islands,
Yeah,
so
and they can power everything. But I would think my iPod would be a good start. But although I have my saxophone, so I guess I can just always create my own music.
You could also use a saxophone as a water-carrying vessel. Brass is durable enough that you could probably heat it up in an emergency to boil your water, and then you could also blow out on it and make a really cool fountain. Unfortunately, I don't think you would have anyone to share that joy with. Maybe some local island critters.
Yeah. Possibly a machete, rope. My scoutmaster would kill me if I didn't say rope.
When do they ever bring the freaking ropes?
They have to give my guy.
The rope always is very important.
The rope
whether you know it or not, the rope will always be important.
The rope is important. And especially the bowline knot. I've always been taught the bowline knot is the most important knot you can have. Thanks, Scoop, for teaching me the bowline knot.
Now, we are both owners of both things here, but cats or dogs?
I gotta go dog.
With barbecue sauce or hot sauce?
Hey. You're gonna be involved in that. No, I love my cats. I love Milo and I love Smokey.
I will say it would be hard for me to pick two,
but days.
If it came to the apocalypse and you had to choose a critter to follow you by your side, would it be a cat or a dog?
I gotta go with the dog. Even if it was Daisy, I could see Daisy still having enough spry in her to keep me safe. And I don't know, I've looked at like Jocko and Tika, and I just can't look into those eyes and say, no. Just like, we're gonna leave you behind. Although, Mr. Cooper over there, he's got the scowl. So, like, I don't know.
He would guilt you into it, perhaps.
Probably, but cats have that, to me...
He's pretty self-sufficient. He doesn't really need us.
They pretty much can do it themselves. Dogs are just like, I'm whatever you want, man. I'm with you. There was something I always liked that people... There's 2 sayings I like with dogs. One is, a dog may be part of your life, but you are its entire life.
I do like that saying, and it always does bring a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
And then it makes you feel guilty for being employed and trying to get them dog food and stuff. And you're like, I need to spend time with my dog. And then it's like, but I need to work so I can afford dog food.
And then the other...
They don't understand.
Another saying I've always liked is, a dog may poop on the floor, but he'll never poop in your heart.
This is true. There are many people that would poop on somebody's heart, but not a dog.
No, a dog will never poop on your heart.
Well, you're a man who enjoys some games, maybe a little trivia, maybe a little this and that, but what's your favorite board game? When the power goes out for, days on end up here, whether someone sneezes too hard, or it gets so cold the electricity freezes, or any of the thousands of terrible northern puns we could have, but what board game gets you through it?
Well, especially during the last few weeks, the power has not been very dependable. In fact, Dad's been prepared. He's got the wood stove going. He's got the generator ready. We're ready to go if this ice starts turning the power off. I am quite the trivia guy. I am a self-proclaimed trivia master. So you would think like Trivial Pursuit or Jeopardy would be my favorite. But actually, I love Monopoly. I've always loved Monopoly.
Is it for your love of capitalism or your love of tearing friendships apart?
I'd have to go with the second one because apparently I've destroyed a lot of friendships.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say you also like Uno, and when you play Uno, you have a stack full of those +4 color changing cards, which we have played Uno together, and this it was almost it. The friendship was almost over, but we repaired that. Thankfully, by throwing the cards viciously. Overtime,
wounds will heal. The Uno Wars of 2017 were still fresh in my mind.
The color change rebellion will live on.
Yeah. My tip for Uno is never sit next to your best friend because they will not be your best friend much longer.
That's a very good tip for all of our listeners out there today.
I always remember my cousin Sarah, because people in the Adirondacks have played Lake Pleasant-opoly, Speculator-opoly, Adirondack-opoly.
I really enjoy Lake Pleasant-opoly when Kevin Bronius has to does something. It's been a while, and you get the card, and it just always makes you smile when you know all of the people. It's kind of like an inside joke for all of us that have been out here for a while.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my cousin Sarah, who will probably listen to this later, has sworn never to play Monopoly with me ever again, and that was when I was 6. But I have the love of capitalism and the love of gambling while performing capitalism.
That's the American dream, is it not?
Of course.
As we are starting to run out of time, let's try and get through some of these a little bit more. Hopefully we have enough time for it all.
Do like lightning round.
Lightning round. First theater show.
First theater show was Aida. Actually on Broadway. Amazing show. First show I was ever in was it was Knights of the Rad Table.
Oh, there's a good one. Let's see. What about your favorite music? How about we just skip all that? What is your current favorite song? Get very specific on everyone.
Current favorite song is one I picked up from actually playing a soccer game. It's by Parade of Lights called Feeling Electric. And it's a really cool song. I highly suggest it.
Well, we'll encourage everyone out there to take a Google. Now, what's your favorite foreign film?
Favorite foreign film would have to be Graveyard of the Fireflies. But unfortunately, it's one of those movies you can only watch once because if you try to watch again, your heart will give out from the sadness of watching that movie.
I've experienced a few movies that way. What was A Dog's Purpose? I watched on my honeymoon in Costa Rica, and I watched the same dog a different dog, but the same spirit as he was reborn again and again and again. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, to be reborn again and again and again, you have to die over and over and over again. It was the most heartbreaking movie to watch on a honeymoon in a tropical paradise. Anyway, I think we might be rounding down to the last questions, and if you were a Harry Potter sorting house, what house would you be?
Ravenclaw.
Ravenclaw, without hesitation.
All the smart people go to Ravenclaw. That's where the scientists go, and all the different magical people. They go to Ravenclaw. Blue and black, baby.
Alrighty. Well, it's been a wonderful hour here with Gary Rhinehart of Declan Radio, and it's been a privilege to be able to learn a little bit more about my best friend.
Oh, it's great, and I'm glad we got to do this. So yeah, listen to Heart to Heart with Gary Rhinehart every Saturday at 8 p.m. We also now have Old Man of the ADK that's at 7 p.m. hopefully we'll be getting more people, more shows put together, and maybe someday you and I will have a show, Nicole.
Well, perhaps we will. I think we bounce off each other well. Let's let the crowd decide on that. I'm sure we'll hear a little bit of feedback on that. Yeah. So for everyone out there in the world, good night from Declan Radio.
Have a good night, guys, and we will see you next time on Heart to Heart.